Shana Tova, everyone. If you would take our seats, we're about to begin.
We're following you.
And I am so thrilled to be in person with you for at least one of our High Holy Days. It's lovely to see you all. And it's lovely to see each other, so why don't we take a moment and turn to someone next to you and wish them a Happy New Year or Shana Tova, good Yantiv. Have a good New Year. All the different ways we can say that. We're so lucky this morning. We have all of our rabbis and cantors with us, and our beloved Rabbi Emerita, Rabbi Karen Fox is here. We're so excited. And how beautiful it is to be together. We begin on page 110 with Ma Tovu. Please join us.
Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Alecha Yaakov, Mishkelotecha Yisrael, Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Alecha Yaakov, Mishkelotecha אני ברוב חסדך עבודתך אשתחווה לך על קודשך ביראתך מה טובו מה טובו אוהליך יעקב משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל. אדוני אהבתי מאוד ביתך ומקום משכן כבודך, מה טובו, מה טובו, אוהליך יעקב, משכנותיך ישראל, מה טובו, מה טובו, משכנותיך ישראל.
So on Rosh Hashanah, the Torah portion we read on the second day is the story of creation. And even if we don't believe in it literally, it's really a commentary on the Jewish view of life. Because after everything that is created, after every day, God says that it's good. God saw that it was good. And when human beings were created, God saw that it was very good. Tov ma'od, we are very good. And sometimes it's hard to remember in these challenging times about the good things. But the Nisim B'chol Yom on page 124, these daily miracles that we take for granted until they're missing really remind us what is always good in our lives. So please join us on page 124 for the Nisim B'chol Yom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lasech v'bina להבחין בין יום ובין לילה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, פוקח עיוורים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, מתיר אסורים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, זוקף כפופים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, רוקע הארץ על המים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשה לי כל צורכי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המכין מצעדי גבר. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, מרביש הרומים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, הנותן לה יעף כוח. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המעביר שינה מעיני ותנומה מעפעפי. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני בצלם אלוהים. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני בן חורין. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, שעשני ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, עוזר ישראל בגבורה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, עוטר ישראל בתפארה.
On page 135, we sing the 150th Psalm, which, with every musical instrument and with our voice and with our breath, we thank God for life and for a good year.
Hallelujah, 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 bekodsho, hallelujah, birkiya uzo, hallelujah, bigvurotav. Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah,
beteka shofar, Hallelujah, benevel bechinot, Hallelujah, betofu machol, Hallelujah, bemini ve'ugav, Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah.
Hallelujah, bitzitz le'shama, Hallelujah, bitzitz le'troa, kol hanshama tehalleluya, kol hanshama tehalleluya.
Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah. Kol hanshama tehalleluya, Hallelujah, Hallelujah, kol hanshama tehalleluya, Hallelujah.
Please turn to page 142 as we rise for the Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai hamevorach, Baruch Adonai hamevorach, leolam vaed.
Please turn to page 144, and I would like us to read together the English in the middle of the page. In love you bring light to the earth and its creatures. Your goodness renews the creation each day. Infinite, varied, and rich are your works, divine artist, all of them wrought with wisdom. The whole earth is teeming with life. Awestruck by the universe, work of your hands, let all life bless you, praise you, and celebrate the beauty of your lights.
Or chadash al Zion ta'ir, v'nizkeh kulanu meher ale'oro, Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer ha'meorot.
Amen.
Shema Yisrael,
Please be seated. So it's our tradition on the second day to have young people chant the Via Hafta. And I didn't warn them, but I'd like to invite the Harari sisters to stand up. And I'm going to bring a microphone. Oh, it's on.
Let them come up here. Why not? The Harari sisters, straight from Radio City Music Hall. Right. Come on up.
Oh. Yeah, Central Cynic.
Here, come over here.
There we go. You can see her.
You come up here.
Oh boy.
Get closer to the microphone. You can grab that hand.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך ושרתם להיות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Thank you so much. I just want to invite, wait. And we have another young person who started here as a child, but now he's a man, Scott Sr., who's like one of our beloved congregants and singers, and I'm going to invite him up to read the Via Hafta in English. He just graduated drama school, so we know he's going to do a really good job.
How's your English literacy, Scott?
Let's see. Sure. Okay. All right. The bottom of page 152. You shall love Adonai your God with all your mind, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Set these words which I command you this day upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be a symbol before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. Thus you will become holy to your God. I, Adonai, am your God, who brought you out of Egypt to be your God. I, Adonai, your God. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Wow.
Good morning, Joel.
In a minute, we're going to recite Mechamocha. I guess Scott is also going to join us for that, too.
I want to make sure he has Hebrew, too.
Yes, he has Hebrew as well. This is good. There's a fable that talks about a man who is walking in a town and he sees an elephant trainer with a group of huge elephants. And the thing is, though, that these elephants, the only thing that is holding them is a small little rope on their leg. And the man sees this small rope and realizes that these huge elephants could break off and run away whenever they want and cause havoc in this town. And so he goes to the elephant trainer and he says, "Sir, how is it that these elephants are not just rampaging all over this town and yet they're still staying right here?" And the trainer says, "Well, you know, we put on this rope when they were young little elephants. And so at that point, they couldn't escape. They couldn't go anywhere. And ever since then, they still think that that little rope can hold them and they can't go anywhere." Right? And it's the whole idea, the teaching is that sometimes we imagine that we are, held back by some invisible force when in fact it's only ourselves and our minds that are holding us back, that we actually can break away from many of the things that we have made assumptions about ourselves or society. And Micha Mocha every single day is supposed to be this reminder that we do not have to have those shackles. We don't have to have those emotional or spiritual shackles in our lives. And especially as we're about to start a new year, how can we imagine that we can break off from that shackle? As we continue to be safe out in the world, and how can we also at the same time find freedom for ourselves and for the others in our society? So we continue now with Micha Mocha, page 164.
Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar b'kodesh, borat tehilot oseferet.
שירה חדשה שבחוגים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופדחנו ממך יהודה וישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו, קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Amen.
We join in the Amidah on page 166.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, v'Kanei HaKol, v'Zocher Chastei Avot v'Yimachot, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. זוכרנו לחיים, מלך חפץ בחיים, וכותבנו בספר החיים, למענך אלוהים החיים. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני Magen Avraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Ata gibor le'olam Adonai, michayei hakol ata Rav lehoshia. Mechalkel chayim bechesed, mechayei hakol berachamim rabim, somech noflim v'rofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayim emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha ba'al gevurot umido melach, melech meimit umechayech umatzmiach Yeshua. Mi kamocha el harachamim zocher yesurav lechaim berachamim v'neheman ata l'hachayot hakol. Baruch ata Adonai michayei hakol.
May be seated. I'd like you to turn to page 173, the top of page 173. I just want to read this little passage to you. Our actions help us live in such a way that when we suffer life's darkest depredations, we will always have ways of coping with them. Our actions may not change the ultimate outcome one iota, but they alter our attitude, bolster our ability to withstand challenges, help us handle unavoidable misfortunes better, and see life's value amid chaos and dismay. Really nice passage by Rabbi Aaron Pankin. What's important is that, unfortunately, even though it says when he's born, it doesn't have the date of his death, because unfortunately Rabbi Aaron Pankin died tragically in a plane crash a couple of years ago. He was the president of Hebrew Union College. And so when I read that and when I see that in this machzor, I'm reminded that, of course, both sides of the Unatana Tokef prayer present right here with Aaron Pankin's passage, which is, of course, the tragedy of the fact that we have no idea what's going to happen tomorrow. We have no idea. We don't like to think about it. We don't know how many of us will be here again next year and how many of us will not be here next year. We don't like thinking about that. It's very uncomfortable. And at the same time, he gives us the wisdom that is so essential to this prayer and so essential to what it means to be Jewish, which is what matters the most is not what's going to happen down the line, but how we act right now. And that the Unatana Tokef prayer ends by giving us the keys to our success, that even though we are not going to be able to change whether or not a plane may crash or what may happen to us or our loved ones, what does matter is that you have the opportunity right now to think about how you can walk in, not even to the next year. Let's just worry about tomorrow, right? Let's just focus on what can we do so that tomorrow morning when you wake up and you're not going to high holiday services, that you can be a little different than you were today or last week. And Unatana Tokef is reminding us that we just have to take it one day at a time, and every single day we have that opportunity to figure out how to make meaning and make the most of our life. So with that, we continue with Unatana Tokef. It begins on the top of 174.
ותשב עליו באמת.
Let us proclaim the power of this day, a day whose holiness awakens deepest awe and inspires highest praise of your dominion. For your throne is a throne of love, your reign is a reign of truth.
אמת כי אתה הוא דיין ומוכיח ויודע ועד וחוטב וסופר ומונה ותזכור כל הנשכחות ותפתח את ספר הזיכרונות ותפתח את ספר הזיכרונות ומאליו יקרא וחותם יד כל אדם בו.
Let's read together on the bottom of page 174. In truth, you are judge and plaintiff, counselor and witness. You inscribe and seal. You record and recount. You remember all that we have forgotten. And when you open the book of memories, it speaks for itself. For every human hand leaves its mark, an imprint like no other.
ובשופר גדול ייתקע וכל דממה דקה יישמע ומלאכים יחפשון וחיל רדה יוחסון ויאמרו הנה יום הדין לבכות על צבא מרום בדין כי לא יזכו ועיניך בדין Rosh Hashanah.
Hold on.
Oh, you're doing that one? Go.
It's okay.
I thought you were looking at me. I was like,
We're not ready. We're not ready.
We
for
do this
the
just to
yet.
prove we're live. It's all part of the plan. It's all part of the plan.
It's just to show our human side.
Are you doing the Chol Be'eh or no?
We are going to continue now.
Because
with
if
that.
not, I'm going to have...
Kiva Karat.
Okay.
We're going to count the sheep now. Kiva Karat. Roedero. Mavir tzono. Takachirto. Mavir tzono. Takachirto. Tavir vetispor, vetispor, vetim נפש כל חי ותספור ותימנה ותפקוד נפש כל חי ותחתוך קצבה לכל בריאה ותכתוב את גזר דינם.
And so a great shofar will cry, Tekiah. A still small voice will be heard. Angels in a whirl of fear and trembling will say, Behold the day of judgment, for they too are judged. In your eyes even they are not blameless. All who come into the world pass before you like sheep before their shepherd. As a shepherd considers the flock when it passes beneath the staff, you count and consider every life. You set bounds. You decide destiny. You inscribe judgments.
Okay.
Rosh Hashanah Yikatevun Uyom Som Kippur Yechatemun Berosh Hashanah Yikatevun Uyom Som Kippur Kamay avurun, kamay bareyun, michye umyamut, berosh Hashanah yikatevun, uryom som kippur, Hashanah Yikatevun Uveyom Som Kippur Yekatemun Mivaesh Umivamayim Mivacherev Umivachayach Mivarov Umivatzama Berosh Hashanah Yikatevun
Uvyom Som Kippur Yechatemun Berosh Hashanah Yikatevun Uvyom Som Kippur Yechatemun
Mivarash Umivamagefach Mivachanikah Umivasikilah Berosh Hashanah
Yikatevun Uvyom Som Kippur Yechatemun Berosh Hashanah Yikatevun Uvyom Som Kippur Yechatemun
Miyanuach, miyanuach, miyashkit, umitoraf, misharev, umiyityaseh, מי אני ומי ישיר, מי יושפל ומי ירום בראש השנה.
יכתבון וביום צום כיפור יכתבון בראש השנה. יכתבון וביום צום כיפור יכתבון.
On Rosh Hashanah, this is written, and on the fast of Yom Kippur, this is sealed. How many will pass away from this world? How many will be born into it? Who will live and who will die? Who will reach the ripeness of age? Who will be taken before their time? Who by fire and who by water? Who by war and who by beast? Who by famine and who by drought? Who by earthquake and who by plague? Who by strangling and who by stoning? Who will rest and who will wander? Who will be tranquil and who will be troubled? Who will be calm and who tormented? Who will live in poverty and who in prosperity? Who will be humbled and who exalted?
ותשובה ותפילה וצדקה מעבירים את הרוב הגזרה.
But through return to the right path, through prayer and righteous giving, we can transcend the harshness of the decree.
We rise for the Kedusha.
Page 184.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, כך כתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אדיר אדירנו, אדוני אדוננו, מאדיר שמך בכל הארץ. ברוך כבוד אדוני. אחד הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמין ברחמיו לעיני כל חי. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ימלוך אדוני לעולם.
אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה.
לדור אדוני נגיד אליך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושיבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לנבואת, כי אל מלכדו וקדוש אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, המלך הקדוש.
Continue with the remainder of our Amidah silently, either with the words on the pages of the prayer book or the words of our hearts.
Shana Tova, everyone. So my kids call me Abba, which is father in Hebrew. Right? And sometimes at my house it sounds like this. It's like, Abba, do you want to watch a Marvel movie with me? Abba, can I have a little bit more screen time on my phone because I really miss my friends and I want to see them. You know, they're on Midwest and I really miss them from camp. Abba, I'm scared. I'm scared that I heard some noises at night. Can you go and check that out? Abba, do you want to play basketball with me? Abba, do you want to play ping pong? Abba, my tummy hurts. I don't feel well. Abba, I'm running really late. Can you please make me some breakfast so we're not late for school? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Abba, I know I was supposed to clean up my room before Alita came over, but I didn't, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you help me? So this is kind of familiar, right, for many of us. And I want to thank Rabbi Nanus. She asked me to speak a little bit about Avinu Malkeinu. And she said, well, you're a father. You can speak about it. And that kind of blew me away for a second because I realized I never really thought of myself in terms of that when it comes to Avinu Malkeinu. Oh, you're like, oh yeah, look who thinks he's Avinu Malkeinu up here. No, that's not what I'm saying. Right? No. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that it's about the perspective. I guess I always looked at Avinu Malkeinu a little bit selfishly, like it was me, and I have done these things, and I need help. But the truth is, right? What are my children saying when they're asking these questions? They're saying, Abba, notice me. Abba, love me. Abba, take care of me. Abba, help me. And we've all been in that position as either care receivers in some way or caregivers in some way, right? Rule creators in some way and rule followers in some way. Experience creators and experience followers or receivers in some way. So perhaps this year we can look at this Avinu Malkeinu in a bit of a different way, as a way for us to renew within ourselves the understanding of the responsibility that comes with that covenant and that unconditional love. Right? Let's think about it also in terms of God. That's a lot of work we're requesting from God. It's a lot of work. But work that is important and meaningful for all of us, right? whether it is as that receiver or that creator for the ones in our lives whom we love and who love us. So with that, we're going to continue now on page 223 with Avinu Malkeinu. I invite us all to please rise.
Avinu Malkeinu Shema Kolenu.
Together. Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voice.
Avinu Malkeinu Chatanu Lefanecha.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have strayed and sinned before you.
Avinu Malkeinu Chamol Aleinu Ve'yalol Aleinu V'tapeinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have compassion on us and our families.
Avinu Malkeinu Kalei Deve V'cherev Rab Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the onslaught of sickness, violence, and hunger.
Avinu Malkeinu Kalei Kol Tsar U'mastin Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, halt the reign of those who cause pain and terror.
Avinu Malkeinu Kodveinu B'Sefer Chaim Tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter our names in the book of lives well lived.
Avinu Malkeinu Kadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew for us a year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu.
Avinu Malkeinu, answer us with grace, for our deeds are wanting. Save us through acts of justice and love.
Avinu Malkeinu Choneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu Choneinu Vaneinu Ki ein banu masim. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu Choneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu Choneinu Vaneinu Ki ein banu masim.
We remain standing on page 227 for our Torah service.
Ki mision tetzeh Torah. Ki mision tetzeh Torah. Udvar Adonai Yerushalayim. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch shenatan Torah, Torah. Israel b'kedushato. Adonai, Adonai, el rachum v'chanun, erech apayim v'rav chesed v'emet. Notzer chesed la'alafim, nose yadon v'feksha v'chata ונקה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, אחד אלוהינו, גדול אדוננו, קדוש ונורא שמו, גדלו לאדוני איתי ונרוממה שמו יחדיו. לך אדוני הגדולה והגבורה, לך תפארת והנצח וההוד. כי גדול בשמיים ובארץ, גדול בשמיים ובארץ. לך אדוני המלאכה והמיתן נעשה לכל לראש. You can be seated.
In just a moment, hold on just one moment, many moments.
I cannot live with so many Ashkenazi Jews sitting in the sun. There's no reason to suffer. So let's just, before we have the Torah service, if you're sitting next to empty seats with shade, raise your hand, okay, and the number of seats so people can move. And please feel free to move your chair. Come on up here in front. Move over to the left or the right. There's no reason to be uncomfortable, and we can all enjoy the service that way. And when the sun moves, you can move again.
So, as we're finding our seats, this is actually perfect for the Torah portion that we are reading this morning. As Rabbi Nanus mentioned earlier in our service, this is Bereshit. We're at the very beginning. And when God comes onto the scene, God doesn't create something out of nothing. God finds this chaos, this tohu vavohu. And in the middle of this chaos, God sees that great beauty can be made. But it has to be separated. And we have to go from here and we have to go from there. Because everyone together, it's too much. We have to spread out a little bit. So what we just did, in a sense, was mimicking that first moment in Bereshit. We're all together. We have to spread out a little bit so we can create that beauty. But in all seriousness, as we enter this new year, I think a word that we have used over and over and over again has been that word chaos. That we are living in this chaotic time. And if there is one kernel of truth that we can learn from this reading this morning, is that in moments of chaos, we can create beauty. We can create something. Because remember, as it says, and we separated in a new day, and it was good. It wasn't perfect. Every generation that comes along, it is our job and it is our goal to make it a little better. So in this coming year, let us not be afraid of the chaos. Let us see it as our responsibility to find beauty and make it a little better. So we're going to have 3 aliyot in our Torah reading this morning, and I'm going to invite 3 different groups. I'm going to ask you to rise where you're standing. We would love for you to come up here, hopefully next year, but we'll ask you to rise where you are. You can find the Aliyah on page 230. And so our first Aliyah, for anyone that is here that has celebrated a simcha in this past year, that has had a simcha, a birth, a wedding, b'nai mitzvah, a new job, something exciting. If you've had a simcha in this past year, we ask you to please rise. Page 230, you are our Aliyah, and to join us in the Aliyah.
A count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Baruch Adonai Hamorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
The Torah reading for Bereshit can be found on page 330. 330.
Amen. Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim v'et haaretz v'haaretz hayta tohu v'vohu v'choshech al pnei tehom v'ruach Elohim merachefet al pnei hamayim v'yomer Elohim yehior v'yehior v'yar Elohim et haor ki tov v'yavdel Elohim ben haor uven hachoshech v'yikra Elohim laor yom v'lachoshech kara laila v'yehi erev v'yehi boker yom echad.
And the blessings after. 3. Baruch Atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
For our second Aliyah this morning, please rise if you are able, if you have overcome an illness in this past year, or if there is someone that you are thinking of that have overcame an illness, but they're still not ready to be out in public, you can rise on their behalf.
All together, and Baruch et Adonai, Baruch Adonai Amorach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Adonai Amorach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Amen. Vayomer Elohim yehi rakia betoch hamayim v'hi mavdil ben mayim lamayim. Vayas Elohim et harakia vayavdel ben hamayim asher mitachat l'rakia uven hamayim asher me'al rakia vayehi chen vayikra Elohim l'rakia shamayim vayehi erev vayehi boker yom sheni.
And blessings after. 1, 2, 3.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
And for our third Aliyah, and we hope this is everyone, to take a page from Rabbi Nickerson's sermon on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Rise for your Aliyah if you are ready in this next year to leave the cave, to enter into our society with kindness and goodness and care.
All together on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3.
Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Asher Bahar Banu Mikol Ha'amim, Lenatan Lanu et Torato, Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah. Amen. Amen. Vayomer Elohim, Yikavu Hamayim, Mitachat HaShamayim, El Makom Echad, V'tera'eh Hayavasha, Vayehi Chen. Vayikra Elohim, Layavasha Eretz, Ulimikvei Hamayim Karayamim, Vayar Elohim Ki Tov, Vayomer Elohim, Tadshe Haaretz Deshe, Esev Mazri Azera, Eitz Peri, Ose Peri Limino, Asher Zarubo Al Haaretz, Vayehi Chen. V'totzei haaretz deshe, Esav mazriya zera liminehu, V'etosei peri, Asher zaruvo liminehu, Vayar Elohim ki tov, Vayehi erev vayehi boker, Yom Shlishi.
1, 2, 3. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah v'emet, v'chayei olam natan Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
You may be seated. Usually, in this moment, when we offer Mishaberach, we often say we derive strength from having the Torah in front of us, and that is true. And for so many of us, we have spent so long doing services online that we haven't had the Torah in front of us. But it's so special to be together for those of us that are here in person, that we not only derive strength from the Torah being in front of us, we derive strength from the collective that is this communal Torah, the Torah that is in our hearts and the Torah that is in our souls. And so we offer this Mishaberach, this prayer for healing, and we draw strength from one another. And so I invite you now to offer the names of loved ones who are in need of healing, healing of the mind, healing of the body, and healing of the soul. And we are so lucky to be together. Please say their name out loud so we can all feel that strength together.
Let us say Amen.
I'm going to regret saying this, but Rabbi Nickerson and I went to rabbinical school together, and to tell apart the two Joels, they called him Joel Gadol, Big Joel, and they called me Joel Katan, Little Joel, to the point that my parents still call me Joel Katan. And the run of service has me doing Hagba, lifting of the Torah. And for the 15 years that I've been called Joel Katan, I've decided to allow Joel Gadol to lift the Torah for Hagba.
Thank you.
And I ask you all to please rise.
We can be seated. This morning's Haftarah can be found on page 257. Romy will be chanting this section of the Haftarah for us. She'll start with the blessing before, and she'll begin the Haftarah on page 257, beginning in verse 17. Verse 17. In this last section, we have the beautiful, memorable words about halfway down. This beautiful phrase, Havein Yakir Li Ephraim, Im Yeled Sha'ashuim. Pay special attention to that particular moment.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'navim tovim v'ratza v'dibrehem hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai Habocher b'Torah u'v'Moshe avdo u'v'Yisrael amo u'v'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek v'shtikva le'acharite ne'um Adonai v'shavu vanim ligvulam. Shamoa shamati Ephraim mitnoded Yisartani va'ivaser ke'egel lo lumad Hashiveni ve'ashuva ki ata Adonai Elohai ki acharei shuvi nichamti ve'acharei hivadei safakti ayared boshti v'gam nichlamti ki nasati herpat ne'urai havein yakir li Ephraim im yeled shashrim ki midei dabri bo zachor es kerenu od Alkein Hamud Me'aylo Rachem Rachamenu Ne'um Adonai.
Baruch Ata Adonai, page 259. Eloheinu melech haolam, sur kol haolamim, tzadik bechol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer ve'oseh, ha'medaber u'mkayem, shekol devarav, emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah, ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al ha'nevi'im, ve'ayom ha'zikaron hazeh, שנתת לנו, אדוני אלוהינו, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל, אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודיעים לך, ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך, בפי כוחי תמיד, לעולם ועד, ודברך אמת, וקיים לעד. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ מקדש ישראל מלך על כל הארץ מקדש ישראל ויום הזיכרון. I know where the Torah goes.
I like all these big, strong gentlemen over there.
Yeah.
And the cantor gets to come pick up the Torah.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I got it.
We rise in honor of the Torah. Too late, sorry. Yahalalu et Shem Adonai, Yiskov Shemo Levado, Hodo Aderet, Meshamayim, Vayaren Keren, Leamo, Tehila Lechol, Chasidav, Livnei Yisrael, Am Gerov, Hallelujah, Hallelujah. It's Chaim hi lama chazikim ba v'tomcheha meushar deracheha tarecheno v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashuva Kadesh Kadesh Yavenu Kadesh Yavenu Ekelem.
Please be seated. Maybe it's because I'm the eldest of 4 siblings, or maybe it's because I enjoy learning, or maybe it's because I'm bossy and I like to tell people what to do, but I've always loved teaching. In fact, when I was 12, I used to play teacher as a game with my friends, and I would give them homework, and I would correct their homework with a red pencil. I started teaching religious school when I was 18 and a freshman in college. And I'd gone to Orthodox Jewish day school and to Hebrew high school, so I had a pretty good background. And then I was always studying and boning up to make sure that I knew what I was teaching. And I didn't just teach for the money, though, of course, that really helped. I taught because I always loved Judaism. To me, Judaism gave you a way of life that just elevated and made everything beautiful and meaningful, and I wanted to share that with my students. So I taught all through college, graduate school, and in New York City. I taught while I was trying to be a struggling writer. And I have to say, I was pretty popular. I was young, I was cool, I had wild curly hair, I was kind of like a hippie. And a lot of times my students were less than 10 years younger than I was. So I could relate to their music, to their TV shows, their movies, to everything. And we had a real connection. And even when I started to earn a living as a writer, I just loved teaching, so I continued teaching. So when I moved to LA for my career, I asked, what's the biggest temple in Los Angeles? And everybody said Wilshire Boulevard Temple. So I called, made an appointment, and I came down and I met this cute young rabbi with curly hair and glasses named Steve Leder. And I said to him, oh, and we connected immediately because we're both Midwesterners. He's from Minnesota, I'm from Chicago, he's Milwaukee, and I said, you should hire me to teach in your school because I'm fantastic. And he laughed and he said, okay, I'll give you a chance. And I ended up teaching at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. But now I taught confirmation because I was older. I wanted to teach older kids. And then my career took off. I adopted a child and I stopped teaching for a while. I just couldn't fit it into my life. Until I decided to go to rabbinical school, which was in my 50s. And then I started teaching adults. And I taught conversion and adult b'nai mitzvah, seniors, all kinds of things. And I never thought I would teach kids again because, now, I hate to say it, it was like 3 generations. I mean, I couldn't relate to kids. And then COVID-19 happened. And everything went on Zoom. And okay, we had to do all our programming on Zoom. We had to do all of our services on Zoom. And I was handling it pretty well. Until I get this call from Browerman Elementary School. We would like each rabbi to teach one of our grades once a week during this time. And Rabbi Nanus, we want you to teach the 3rd grade. And there are 4 3rd grades, so you will be teaching 4 times to about 55 8 and 9-year-olds on Zoom. So my heart sank to the pit of my stomach. I just thought, oh my God, how was I going to connect to 8 and 9-year-old children? And how are they going to connect to me? How was I going to teach them anything that would interest them, relate to them, seem meaningful to them in 2020, during a pandemic, in a lockdown, on a screen? I didn't even know what TikTok was. Instagram was a mystery. I had no idea what they thought about, what they cared about, what excited them. And this really worried me, what bored them. I met them for the first time about a year ago, right before Rosh Hashanah, 5781. And here we are together, Rosh Hashanah, 5782. And I am here to tell you that teaching those kids was one of the most beautiful, profound, uplifting experiences of my life. Not only did I teach them, not only did they teach me, but they touched me and moved me in a way that no other class of students had ever done before. And I actually think it's because of the age difference, because of this gap, that I was able to take in what they had to say and recognize their incredible wisdom and marvel at their thoughtful questions and be amazed at their kindness and generosity. And I want to share some of that with you this morning. Because after the past year and a half, if there was ever a Rosh Hashanah where we needed something sweet, something a little stronger than apples and honey to lift our spirits and flavor our prayers with a taste of hope and optimism, it's one of those times. The first time I met my students, I introduced myself and asked them what their Hebrew names were and if they knew who they were named after. Then I asked them to share one thing about themselves that they were proud about. A lot of them said they were good at sports or the arts. One girl said she was a playwright and wanted to be famous, and I related to that completely. And then one gentle, soft-spoken boy raised his hand and said, "I'm an ambassador to sick people in the hospital." "Really?" I said. "What does that mean exactly?" "I go there and visit on weekends. Sometimes I collect toys and bring them presents." I later found out that this boy himself had been in the hospital and spent many months there. And now at the tender age of 8, he was giving back. The Talmud teaches that visiting the sick is one of the holiest mitzvot in the Torah, comparable to saving a life. And it's guaranteed to bring you blessings in this world and the next. And it says that when you visit someone who's sick, you remove 1/60th of their pain. Here was a child making a difference in the lives of others because he understood what they were going through. The following week, we listened to the shofar and discussed the meanings of the different sounds. Tekiah, I said, is a call to pay attention and show up. What do you have to show up or pay attention to? Shavarim reminds us of our brokenness or the brokenness of the world. What do we need to repair that is broken? Teruah is an alarm to wake us up. What do we have to wake up to be reminded of? I have to show up for school because that's my job. My grandma is kind of broken because she's sick and we can't even see her. I think I should call her more. She lives by herself and she might be lonely. I need to be reminded that even though we're stuck at home, I have a nice house and an iPad and good food and everything I really need. It's a lot worse for other people. Beautiful answers to beautiful and difficult questions. How would you answer them? On Yom Kippur, I had the kids create their own book of life. On the cover, they wrote their own names, and inside, the names of all of those whom they wanted to have a good year. Of course, they wrote their family and their friends and their pets. By the way, one girl has a pet tarantula that she showed me on Zoom. And then a lot of them wrote, everyone in the whole world. There were no Democrats, Republicans, red states, blue states, races, religions, gender identities, just everyone, God. Please give them a good year. There is one mitzvah in the Torah that is repeated 36 times, far more than any other. Remember the stranger because you were a stranger in the land of Egypt. 36, which is 2 times 18. A double chai in my mind, because to me it means it brings life to the person who performs the mitzvah and life to the person who receives the mitzvah. It seems that these third graders inherently understand that even those with whom we don't know or don't agree with, who are so different, are still worth remembering and caring about. Finally, I asked them to create a prayer for all of us for the coming year because, as we know, we're all in this together. We really are connected. Out of the mouths of babes, I heard, please, God, help us find a cure for COVID. Help feed the homeless and find them houses. Protect the elephants and other endangered species. Help us take care of the earth before it's too late. We need rain, but no mudslides and no earthquakes. Make people stop hating each other. These are not new requests. I know that. But when you hear the sincerity, the concern, the anxiety, the worry in the voice of a child, these appeals take on a weight and an importance that is impossible to ignore. They care so much, I thought to myself. How can we not work to make this world a better place for them? As the months wore on, the children opened their hearts and minds to me. We played games, created art projects, read stories, and acted out plays about Jewish values, such as kindness, gratitude, justice, responsibility. And they shared their philosophies and fears about what it's like to live through a pandemic when you're 8 years old. What's one kind thing you can do this week? A lot of kids said, help my mom, because I guess they didn't. A lot more said, not fight with my brother or sister, which is a huge challenge when you're living with people for 24 hours a day. And one boy said, if someone bullies my friend, I will stick up for him. What's one good thing that came out of this quarantine? I get to eat lunch with my parents. My mom and I bake challah together. My dad and I bake challah together. Almost all of them answered some version of, I get to spend more time with my family. No one said, I get packages from Amazon every day, or I get to play more video games. Things in life aren't things. They were in the 3rd grade, and they had already figured that out. Write a letter to your future self and tell them what you've learned from living during COVID. If you can go to school, don't complain. If you can see your friends, be happy. If you don't have to wear a mask, you are really lucky. Finally, what responsibilities do you have at home during this time? So one rather shy boy who hardly talked at all, he shared that he did the laundry for his entire family. Really, I said, impressed. Let me ask you a question. When do you put in the detergent? Before the clothes or after the clothes? He said with confidence, detergent before, fabric softener after. Wow, I said, you really know your stuff. Then I invited him to come and do my laundry, if I'm being honest. The Kabbalists teach that every person contains a divine spark, a tiny light of holiness that is part of us, which is the Tselem Elohim, the image of God. I believe it is up to us to ignite those sparks by recognizing the value of those around us, by really seeing them and appreciating their light within. Every child in the 3rd grade had a special light. And when I recognized it, I watched them open up like beautiful flowers. Imagine if we all did this, not just with children, but everyone. Imagine if we acknowledge the inner beauty that each one of us possesses. What would our world be like? On Rosh Hashanah, we ask God to inscribe us in the book of life. But the fact is that we have our own book of life that we ourselves inscribe. Some chapters are written by our relationships with other people. Some chapters are crafted by the decisions and choices we make. And some very special chapters are created by the lessons we learn. And that is precisely why my chapter with the 3rd grade is one of the highlights of my book of life. It is filled with lessons, not just for me, but for all of us as we strive to move out of the darkness of this past year and a half. Lessons about what's important, about what counts, about the difference between what we want and what we need, about what we struggle with and what we hope for, about the power of love and the holiness of every human being, about finding the good even in the worst of times. Just as we dip apples into honey, may we all dip our hearts and minds into the sweet words of these sweet children. Let them inspire us and guide us to become more caring, more understanding, and more grateful in the coming year. Let us all follow their example and be inscribed for a beautiful, sweet chapter in our book of life. Shana Tova. No. So this is a perfect time, actually, to do the Grand Aleinu. the Elenu, where the high priest in ancient times would go and he would pray for everyone. He would go into the Holy of Holies and prostrate himself and ask for a good year. But we are all priests since the temple was destroyed. So we're going to rise, and our cantors are going to lead us in the Grand Elenu. One cantor. And what page? 202, page 202.
Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה שלא שם חלקנו כהם וגורלנו ככל המונם ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Please be seated, everyone. In all fairness, we did forget to make the cell phone announcement, so it's okay that it's... It's an old joke, but it's also true. So in great rabbinic tradition, before I speak, there are a couple things I want to say. It's just how it is. I want to make a couple of observations. We started with Nisim B'chol Yom, these miracles of daily life, these things that it's easy to take for granted unless we actually stop to recognize them as blessings. I was sitting there watching and participating in the service and realized that we have two female cantors, female rabbi teaching Torah, a young woman chanting Haftarah, and a woman chanting Torah. And seems normal. But it wasn't always so. I actually believe that 1,000 years from now, when historians write about American Judaism, I think they will list the full inclusion of women as the most important and significant change in Judaism in the 20th century. And I want to recognize that as a nes b'chol yom, as a daily miracle. And I also want to point out that when I say it wasn't always thus, we have among us a woman who was ordained in only the second class of rabbis to have women within it, and that's our own Rabbi Karen Fox, who's here. Karen, it's great to have you here with us. And she could have lifted that Torah, too. We also have the senior-most rabbi of Wilshire Boulevard Temple with us this morning, and it's really an honor when other rabbis choose to join your shul. Stanley Davids is here with us with his wife Risa, and we're so glad you're here. And I want to take a moment, since this is sort of family here. I get to sit with the yeshiva buchers in my row. I want to give us all the opportunity to say a really important thank you. If you work for Wilshire Boulevard Temple, would you please stand up so that the rest of us can thank you for what you do? Yeah, you guys, we do pay you guys. Yeah, you can. Now, there are a couple of new people I want to introduce. Naomi, would you please stand again? Naomi Ra'em is relatively new, but already battle-tested as the executive director of education at the temple. We run a school system with about 1,400 kids in it. And we really need a captain of that ship. And so we searched the entire nation, the world really, and we're so honored, Naomi, that you're with us and a part of the temple family now, and that your family is with us too. Thank you. And she didn't stand, but she should. I want Mara to please stand. Come on, Mara. This is Mara Friedman. Mara is, she's in charge of dragging us into the 21st century. Mara is now managing the social media for the temple, and she's the absolute newest person here who's working for the temple. And she's utterly amazing, and she said she would take the job if I found her a husband. So please meet her at Kiddush, and because we'd like to keep her around. She's a nice Jewish girl from Philly, so please, okay, do your job, all right? I know Robin's going to be all over this, right? She loves to do it. But really, thank you to all of you who work for the temple. None of this happens by accident. None of it. And we're grateful to all of you, really. We're about to enter into the shofar service, which actually has 3 parts to it. Malchuyot, where we recognize, and I'm going to use the word very deliberately because I'm going to talk about it, the kingship of God. Zichronot, where we recognize God as the one who remembers our deeds, those remembered and those forgotten. And shofarot, the God who does these things by means of the sounding of the shofar. And I'm going to speak this morning a little bit about this concept of malchuyot, God's kingship. This concept of God as king disturbs a lot of us. But as I've grown older, I've also realized that it comforts many people also. It disturbs a lot of us because we have such negative feelings about a ruler, even a benevolent ruler. We're disturbed by anyone or anything having dominion over us. And if you think about it, our country was actually founded as an anti-monetarist country. It was really the kingship and the taxes that the founding fathers and mothers opposed. We're much more comfortable, most of us, with God as nature or science or empathy or comfort or morality, anything but ruler. And I have this theory, which I cannot prove, but I think that's why this word, mitzvah, has really become thought of and known among most Jews as a good deed. Oh, it was such a mitzvah. That was such a mitzvah that you did. But a mitzvah is not a good deed. A mitzvah is a commandment, and you cannot have a commandment. You cannot have a mitzvah unless there is a mitzvah, unless there is a commander whose orders have to be followed, even if their purpose is not clear to us. I think most, if not every one of us here, we're all, I think, Jews who were raised in most ways thankfully, and I think we all really believe in our own autonomy. But this was not always so. And it is not so for millions of Jews in the world. Millions of Jews and virtually all of the ancient rabbis believe that what happens is a result of God's will, that God, not we, are ultimately the force that animates everything. This is essentially God's answer to Job. Many of you know the story of Job, and God behaves outrageously in this book of Job, who was not a Jew, by the way. He was an everyman. He represents all people. And he was entirely blameless. Nothing he did was the reason that he suffered. I think this is the most significant book in the Bible because it's the first that really says bad things really do happen to good people who don't deserve it. It's the first book not to blame the victim for being a sinner. God takes away Job's wealth, his business, his family, and Job's friends say, "You must have been bad." And he says, "No, to the contrary, I've been very good. I'm a good person. Why me?" And then God appears on the scene. And God says, "Look, I made this bet with Satan, and you've done very well." Does God try to justify God's behavior? No. Instead, God just looks at Job and says, "Are you big? I am. Do you make the sun rise and set? Do you keep the ocean within its shores? I make it rain where no person lives. You are not the center of my concern, and you are not the center of existence. And who are you to challenge me to be righteous as a human would be, to give human qualities to God? The universe says God is a mystery, and I am it." And here's Job's reply. "I have heard thee, and now I behold thee." He renounces his human judgment in the face of the mystery that is God and the universe. We don't like to hear this, but we do know it's at least largely true. We all have control over many of our decisions and our moral choices, but that is not the same thing as having control, as Rabbi Nickerson pointed out, over what does and does not happen to us, who shall live and who shall die, how and when, and if what happens to us and our loved ones is part of some greater plan that we'll never grasp because we're only human. This is old-time religion. Malchuyot is old-time religion. And accepting that is painful. Painful that even seemingly evil things are also God's will. That disturbs us. But it comforted our ancestors, and it also comforts many today who are unable to live with their losses otherwise, because it gives some meaning and purpose that can't be grasped, but yet we have faith exists to the destiny of our lives. I was thinking as Carolyn chanted Breshit for us this morning, all of this is implanted in the story of creation. On day one, God creates light and darkness. The sun is not created until day 4. And our ancestors were not fools. They were trying to teach us a very deep spiritual lesson about Malchuyot. This lesson in that story is to say, don't think for a moment that light comes from the sun. Don't worship the sun like the pagans around you. The sun is a vessel for God's light and God's power. There is a power behind the power that brings light. So whether disturbed or comforted by this idea of God as king, this part of the shofar service is a reminder, this first Malchuyot is a reminder that some gratitude and humility would be in order for the simple fact that due to some force far greater than us, we are here today. We draw breath. We're together, alive, able to sing and pray and embrace the hope for a new and better and sweeter year. This is a God-given gift. Come what may. We begin now the shofar service, page 206.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lishmoa kol shofar. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. ברוך אתה אדוני מלך על כל הארץ מקדש ישראל מלך על כל הארץ מקדש ישראל מלך על כל הארץ מקדש ישראל ויום הזיכרון. תקיעה שברים תרועה תקיעה תקיעה שברים תקיעה תקיעה תרועה תקיעה. Areshet Sifatenu, the bottom of 207. Be ready. Areshet Sifatenu, Yera lefanecha el Ram v'nisa. Areshet Sifatenu, Yera lefanecha el Ram v'nisa. Me'vino mazi מביט ומקשיב לכל תקיעתנו ותקבל ברחמים, ברחמים ורצון, סדר מלכויותינו.
So the second set of shofar sounds or blasts are zichron note, which means memory. Traditionally, it means we ask God to remember us for the sake of our matriarchs and patriarchs. And in my opinion, I was thinking, really, aren't there any people since 4,000 years ago who are worth their merit for us? And last year, I actually mentioned a few. One of them was Elie Wiesel. One of them was Lillian Wald, who started the Henry Street Settlement House. One was Julius Rosenzweig, who started all these black schools all over the South. But this year, I want to ask you, a few of you, for whose merit should we be remembered? Who was so good in their lifetime that God should remember us for their sakes? And if you raise your hand, I'll come over to you with it. Yes, or I'll repeat it. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I agree. Who else? Anyone else? For whose sake? It could be someone you personally knew. Yes? Martin Luther King. Okay, beautiful, for his sake, who cared for all humanity. Yes. John Lewis. Yes. Yes. Theodore Herzl. Beautiful. One or two more. Anybody else have someone for whose sake?
Susan, all the way to your left.
All the way to my left. Yes. Aretha Franklin. Okay, any Jews that we can think of? Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Ginsburg. Abraham Joshua Heschel. Golda Meir. Beautiful. So for their sakes and our ancestors, we now hear Zichronot.
כי זוכר כל הנשכחות אתה מעולם, והנשיכך לפני כיסא כבודך. ברוך אתה אדוני, זוכר הברי.
אמן.
תקיעה שברים תרועה, תקיעה, תקיעה, שברים, תקיעה, תקיעה, תרועה, תקיעה.
הרשת
Arashet Sefatenu.
הרשת שפתנו ירב לפניך אל רם ונישא. הרשת שפתנו ירב לפניך אל רם ונישא. מבין ומאזין, מביט ומקשיב לכל תקיעתנו. ותקבל ברחמים, ברחמים ורצון, סדר זיכרונותינו.
And the final blasts are called shofrot, which literally mean shofar blast. You hear shofar. And it's meant to blast us out of our complacency and shake us up and push us to change. So I would like anyone to share, what do you or we need to change in the coming year? What habit, what behavior do we need to change? Does anybody think they need to change anything? Yes. I can't hear you. Being so angry about current events, right? Because it doesn't hurt anyone but ourselves, really. Yes. Being able to listen to people that you do not agree with. Yes, we all need to work on that, I think. Anyone else? Oh, yes. Be more aware of our consumption. Yes. Patience. Beautiful. Anyone else? Empathy. Okay, let's think of that as we hear the final blast of the shofar of Shofarot.
You can follow along the blessing on page 284.
Baruch atah Adonai, shomea shomea, kol teruah, amo Yisrael berachamim.
Amen.
Tikia, Shvarim Trua, Tikia, 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 Shvarim, Tikia, Tikia, Trua, Tikia Gedolah.
Areshet sefotenu, Areshet sefotenu, Yerov lefanecha, El Ram venisa. Meivinu mazin, Meivinu mazin, Mabitu makshiv, Mabitu makshiv, Meivinu mazin, Mabitu makshiv, lekol, 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 tekiyotenu. Kabel berachamim, berachamim uberachon, utkabel berachamim, berachamim uberachon. Seder, 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 shofroteinu. Ay, 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 bam, bam, bam. Ay, 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 bam, bam, bam. Ay, bam, ay, 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 ay. Meivinu mazin, Meivinu mazin, Mabitu makshiv, Mabitu makshiv, Meivinu mazin, Mabitu makshiv, lekol, 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 tekiyotenu.
Is it actually over?
Never ask a cantor if it's over. Never ask.
Ever do that.
Never ask a cantor.
It's never over. It's never over. So many things I could say, but we're recording.
I wouldn't say another word if I were you.
Oh, Shana Tova, everyone. This is so nice. This is so nice to not have an empty space. It's so nice to have this space filled with all of us and our warmth and our energy and our spirits and our souls to greet another new year. It makes it so much sweeter. Just a few brief announcements as we begin to conclude. Special thank you to Bill Beck, our music director, which I think I learned, at least, I believe, is the absolute longest serving employee of Wilshire Boulevard Temple, 49 years, which is incredible because he's 52. Bill, thank you. A special thank you to Mitch and Max Dorff, our incredible and incomparable shofar blowers. It would not be Rosh Hashanah without you guys, that's for sure. And also to our Livestream LA, our tech crew, who's been just killing it every service, making us look good for all of you at home. They're working around the clock and really, really, really hard. So thank you all. Next week, Wednesday night, Kol Nidre, Yom Kippur on Thursday. Check the website for service times and streaming information. And Carolyn Becker, how could I forget? Carolyn, how many years have you been chanting Bereshit on second day Rosh Hashanah? Many. Since your bat mitzvah. Thank you. And Romy, I'm like losing it here. And Romy for our Haftarah. And the rest of the Harari sisters for an incredible Ve'ahavta. Scott Sr. as well. And anybody who I've forgotten to thank. Next week. We'll turn our thoughts now to sacred moments of memory, moments of Kaddish, as we think of loved ones and family members, members of our community who are no longer with us. We particularly think today of those for whom we're in a period of shloshim, those who have died during these past 30 days. So we call to mind Mildred Chanis, Earl Cohen, Phyllis Copen, Edward Gelb, Robert Hazlett, Marcia Kitte, Layla Kreider, George Piness Jr., Andrea Stanford, and Jean Whitney. We also think of those to whom we are grateful but do not know, those who have fallen defending the flags of the United States of America, the State of Israel, all the innocent victims of senseless terrorism and violence all over the world, and everyone who has no one to say Kaddish for them. We take them into our hearts as our own, and we rise on page 292 for Mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, ve'alma divra chiruteh ve'amlich malchuteh, v'chaye echon v'yom echon, v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kari ve'imru, Amen. Yehi shemei Rabbah mevarach le'alam u'lalmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudsha barichu, le'ela u'le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush bechata v'nechemata, ta'amiran ve'alma ve'imru, Amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, u'yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, Amen.
Oseh shalom b'imromav,
Uyaseh shalom aleinu. Oseh shalom b'imromav. Uyaseh shalom aleinu.
Oseh shalom b'imromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Oseh shalom b'imromav, uyaseh shalom aleinu.
Shalom b'imromav, uyaseh shalom
Yaseh Shalom Aleinu, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Yisrael. 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 Amen. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Don't worry, you still got it. You still got the mask.
I'm so hungry.
I'm so thirsty.
All right.
Hi, we're the Wagmeister family.
And we've been members of University Synagogue for the last 35 years.
We are so excited and so happy to now be part of the Wilshire Boulevard Temple family.
L'Shana Tova!
From the Wagmeisters.
These are the Madrahim, and we're wishing you a Shana Tova.
Yeah.
The Wilshire Boulevard Temple Religious School at the Irmis campus wants to wish you a very happy and sweet New Year.
Shana Tova.
This is the University Campus Religious School staff. We want to wish you all
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova from the Weisberg family.
Shana Tova from the Goldsmith family, wishing you all a sweet new year.
This is Wilshire Boulevard Temple's Glazer Campus Religious School staff. We are so excited to welcome you and wish you a very happy new year. Shana Tova!
Shana Tova, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here and sending wishes. I'm only so sorry we all can't be together. It's such a interesting time that we have lived through, and we all seem to do that, don't we, from generation to generation. With all warmest regards for a terrific 5782, may your family be well, may you be well, live the life we've got. It's wonderful life. And from the Bernstein Wasser family, I send all of our best wishes, and again, a healthy, happy New Year. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. We wish you a happy New Year. L'Shana Tova from Memphis. Tikia.
Hello, this is Carol and Marvin Levy, wishing everyone at Wilshire Boulevard Temple a healthy and happy New Year. L'Shana Tova.
We want this coming year to be one of the best years. Everyone, stay safe, stay well. Shana Tova.